You say you want success. You dream of recognition, freedom, wealth, or love. But when opportunity comes close, something inside you hesitates. You procrastinate, you self-sabotage, you suddenly lose momentum. And you tell yourself stories. I'm not ready yet. The timing isn't right. Maybe later. But what if the truth is darker? What if you don't fear failure at all? You fear success. Because success demands transformation. It strips away excuses, forces you to stand alone, and requires that you carry the unbearable weight of your own potential. Nietzsche warned us of this hidden terror long ago. Nietzsche called it the burden of greatness. He believed that most people are not crushed by their failures, but by the terrifying possibility that they could become more than they are. Success is dangerous because it destroys the comfort of mediocrity. If you succeed, you can no longer hide behind excuses or blame society, parents, or circumstance. You are exposed, fully responsible for your life. And that kind of freedom feels like a cage. Think of the last time you nearly achieved something important. Maybe it was an opportunity to speak your truth, to change careers, to walk into love instead of fear. And yet, you stopped yourself. Why? Because success carries a silent consequence. It changes who you are. Nietzsche's will to power was not just about domination. It was about the terrifying courage to create yourself anew. Most people don't fear failure because failure is familiar. It lets us stay in the shadows, complaining, envying, pointing fingers. But success? Success demands exposure. It demands accountability. It demands we step into the arena and risk being seen, criticized, or even envied. Nietzsche saw this as humanity's greatest psychological conflict. We say we want freedom, but we secretly cling to our chains. This is why people who appear talented, intelligent, or full of potential often collapse when real opportunities arrive. The fear of success is not laziness. It is terror of transformation. Because once you succeed, you can never go back to the comfortable story that you were meant for something more. Now you must live it. And so, Nietzsche asks us, do you truly want success, or do you just want the fantasy of it? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The greatest weight you carry isn't your failures. It's your unused potential. Every time you imagine what you could be, a silent shadow grows inside you, a reminder of the life unlived. Nietzsche called this the tragedy of the last man. The person who chooses comfort over greatness, who avoids risk for the safety of routine. The last man doesn't fear failure because he never dares enough to fail. What he fears is the unbearable responsibility of becoming more than average. And you might feel the shadow every day. You know you're capable of more, but the very thought of trying terrifies you. What if you succeed? What if you actually achieve the thing you've dreamed of? That would mean no more fantasies, no more someday excuses. Success would force you to stand in the light, to live up to your own expectations. Consider an artist who never finishes their masterpiece. They sketch, they plan, they talk about their great ideas, but they never release them. Why? Because the moment they put their work into the world, it can be judged, misunderstood, or even praised. Paradoxically, praise is even scarier, because it confirms their power and forces them to keep creating. Potential feels safe because it lives in imagination. Reality feels dangerous because it demands proof. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, the one who overcomes, is terrifying precisely because it demands action. To step beyond ordinary life means to constantly confront your own shadow of potential, to refuse comfort and mediocrity. Success exposes us to the truth that there is no turning back. Once you've climbed the mountain, you cannot pretend you belong in the valley. Psychologists today echo Nietzsche's insight. Abraham Maslow warned that people don't just suffer from a fear of failure, but from a fear of their own greatness. He called it the Jonah complex, the impulse to run away from our destiny, just as Jonah fled from God's call in the Old Testament. We shrink ourselves to avoid the terror of responsibility. So the question is this: are you still hiding in your potential, using it as a shield? Or are you ready to confront the reality that success means becoming someone new and leaving your old self behind forever? One of Nietzsche's most radical ideas was that comfort is not a gift, it's a trap. He saw modern society as obsessed with safety, stability, and predictability. But comfort, he argued, is the silent enemy of greatness. When you are too comfortable, you have no reason to risk, no reason to change, no reason to create. Success demands discomfort, because growth only comes when the ground beneath you is shaking. Think about the times in your life when you actually grew the most. Was it when everything was easy? Or was it when you faced heartbreak, uncertainty, or loss? Nietzsche believed that suffering wasn't something to escape. It was the very engine of becoming. To succeed, you must be willing to step into pain, to embrace discomfort as the sign you're alive. But here's the paradox. Many people unconsciously sabotage their success because success itself destroys the comfort they secretly cling to. For example, imagine someone who longs for financial freedom but fears the responsibility of managing wealth. They dream of being admired but fear the judgment that comes with visibility. They want love but fear the vulnerability of truly being seen. And so, they settle for comfort instead. Mediocre jobs, mediocre relationships, mediocre lives. Nietzsche saw this everywhere. People numb themselves with routine, entertainment, or conformity. They chase distractions instead of meaning. Because to step into real success means leaving the herd. It means risking the pain of isolation, the burden of responsibility, and the jealousy of others. Comfort whispers, stay where you are. It's easier here. But greatness demands you ignore that voice. Consider the life of every revolutionary thinker, from Socrates to Martin Luther King Jr. None of them lived comfortable lives. They embraced risk, discomfort, and even persecution. And in doing so, they transformed the world. Nietzsche himself lived in poverty, illness, and isolation, yet from that suffering came some of the most radical ideas in philosophy. So ask yourself, do you want comfort or do you want success? You cannot have both. Success will strip away comfort, expose you to risk, and demand a version of yourself you've never met before. And maybe that's exactly what you've been running from. If you've ever caught yourself procrastinating right before a big breakthrough, you felt the fear of success at work. Psychologists call it self-sabotage, the unconscious tendency to block your own progress when you are on the edge of something meaningful. But why would anyone do this? Why would you betray yourself? Because success creates pressure. Once you succeed, expectations rise from others and from yourself. Failure is easy to explain away. Success? That makes you accountable. Think of the student who never studies but claims they could be done well if they tried. The excuse protects them from the terrifying truth. If they gave their best and failed, their identity would collapse. So they self-sabotage to protect the illusion. Nietzsche anticipated this psychology long before modern science. He saw that people fear success because it eliminates excuses. Once you know your power, you can no longer pretend weakness. Once you succeed, you can no longer claim you were held back. You must face the responsibility of choice. And responsibility is heavy. In therapy, this is sometimes called fear of responsibility syndrome. Patients will avoid opportunities, stay in toxic relationships, or sabotage careers because deep down they fear the radical freedom of choosing their own destiny. Sartre echoed Nietzsche here. Freedom is not liberation, but burden. Once you are free, you are fully responsible for what you make of yourself. Let's be honest, you've likely done this too. Maybe you avoided applying for that dream job because the rejection would feel unbearable. Or maybe you delayed publishing your art, your book, or your work because then the dream would end, replaced by reality. Self-sabotage feels like safety, but it's actually slow self-destruction. Here's the twist. Self-sabotage isn't just fear of failure. It's fear of the new identity success would demand. Because when you succeed, you don't just win something external, you become someone else. That metamorphosis is what people fear most. So the next time you catch yourself sabotaging your progress, ask, what new version of me am I actually afraid of becoming? And what excuses am I willing to sacrifice to step into that version? The truth is, Nietzsche's warning wasn't just about success, it was about freedom. He believed that true freedom was the heaviest burden a human could carry. Most people, he said, don't want freedom at all. They want the illusion of freedom without the weight of responsibility. This is why authoritarian leaders, manipulative bosses, and even toxic relationships survive. Because deep down, many people prefer to be told what to do. They prefer chains, as long as the chains feel familiar. To be free is to stand alone. To succeed is to admit that your life is in your own hands. And that is terrifying. Nietzsche contrasted two types of people, the herd and the creator. The herd seeks safety, approval, and conformity. The creator dares to invent new values, to live beyond the expectations of society. But to become a creator is to step outside the herd, and that means loneliness, risk, and exposure. Success always feels like exile because it sets you apart. Think about how society reacts to those who succeed too much. We admire them, but we also resent them. We gossip, criticize, and look for flaws, because their success reminds us of our own compromises. This is why so many people secretly fear succeeding. They fear the envy, the isolation, the betrayal that often comes with standing out. Nietzsche's will to power was not about crushing others, but about the courage to bear the burden of freedom. Success is not a trophy. It is a weight, the weight of choice, accountability, and constant growth. If you succeed once, you cannot stop. You must continue. Freedom is never finished. It demands new choices every day. Modern psychology mirrors this in what's called choice overload. Too much freedom can paralyze us. Too many options lead us to crave simple rules, routines, and external control. That's why success often feels more exhausting than failure. It multiplies the choices you must make. So maybe it's not failure that terrifies you. Maybe it's the unbearable responsibility of being free. And maybe, Nietzsche would say, the only way forward is to embrace that burden and carry it with pride. Nietzsche wrote, "If you gaze long into the abyss gazes also into you." Success, in many ways, is an abyss. It's unknown, unpredictable, and irreversible. Once you step into it, your old identity is gone forever. This is why success feels like death. It kills the version of you that was small, comfortable, and protected. Psychologists call this an identity death. When you achieve something monumental, whether it's fame, wealth, love, or mastery, the old you no longer exists. And that death, even when it leads to rebirth, feels terrifying. Lottery winners spiral into debt. Famous actors collapse into addiction. Entrepreneurs sabotage their own companies. Why? Because they never learned how to mourn the old self that success destroyed. They chased the dream, but weren't prepared for the abyss of transformation that followed. Nietzsche believed that true strength comes from saying yes to this abyss, not running from it. To embrace success is to accept the death of your old self. It's to look into the darkness of change and allow it to reshape you. Here's the twist. Failure is safe because it preserves your old identity. You can always say, "I tried, but it didn't work." Success, however, removes the safety net. There is no going back, and that's why many people unconsciously run from it. But what if the abyss isn't something to fear, but something to trust? What if the death of your old self is the only way to truly live? Nietzsche's philosophy wasn't about despair, it was about courage. He wanted us to embrace life in its totality, with all its risks, pain, and transformations. So when you stand on the edge of success and feel fear, remember, that fear is the sign you are standing before the abyss. And only those who dare to step into it ever discover who they truly are. So, why do you secretly fear success? Because success is not what you think it is. It's not comfort or ease or applause. It's transformation. It's exposure. It's the death of who you were and the birth of who you must become. Nietzsche's dark warning was not meant to scare you, but to awaken you. He wanted us to stop hiding behind excuses, to stop shrinking from our own potential. To succeed is to suffer, to risk, to be misunderstood. But it is also to live fully, to embrace freedom, and to create a life that is truly yours. Ask yourself, are you still clinging to the fantasy of success because it feels safer than the reality? Are you still protecting yourself with procrastination, excuses, or self-sabotage? Or are you willing to step into the abyss, to carry the burden of freedom, and to face the death of your old self? The truth is, success will never feel safe. It will never feel easy, but neither does greatness. Nietzsche once said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star." The chaos is your fear, your uncertainty, your resistance. The star is what happens when you move forward anyway. So here is the choice. You can continue living in the comfort of potential, forever dreaming, forever hiding. Or you can risk everything, your comfort, your excuses, your old identity, to step into the terrifying, beautiful reality of success. And when you do, you may discover that the thing you feared most was not success itself, but the terrifying power of the person you were always meant to become.